The Buttkicker range has been refreshed with a suite of more sim racing focused features and overall improvements to the system. There's an upgraded amplifier with some nice quality of life features. They've added USB connectivity, better cabling, and a much better form factor for the shakers themselves, which also feature more sim rig friendly mounting options. We're looking at the Gamer Plus kit today, which is a direct replacement for the old Gamer 2 and the simulation kit systems, which were the mainstay of sim racing applications. But there's also the Gamer Pro, which is essentially the same system with more added grunt and more mass in the base transducer. And there's also new software called HaptiConnect, which integrates with your sims to provide telemetry-based feedback as well as audio splitter routing. This offers the opportunity to run the setup in a low-profile digital mode connected via USB, or with analog audio routing, which has been the setup sim racers have used in the past. The team at Guitammer were kind enough to send me the Gamer Plus kit to test, and while I didn't pay for it, all of the thoughts here are my own, and they've had no input on the content of this video. Since it does the actual shaking, let's start with the transducer itself. The shaker included in the Plus kit is similar in form factor to the old Sim kit, but with more mounting options. The profile-friendly bolt mounting holes are retained and are augmented with a post clamp, similar to that employed on some of the older Buttkicker models, but in a much smaller form factor, which is actually more of a big deal than it sounds. In terms of specifications, it's identical to the old Sim kit, with a frequency response of 5 to 200 Hz, 2 ohm impedance, and can handle between 75 and 250 watts. The driver features 170 grams of moving mass, or 6 ounces in freedom units, which is what makes it actually shake. If you've seen a Buttkicker transducer before, you'll know the build quality of the unit is excellent. It's reassuringly sturdy thanks to the nicely finished cast aluminium housing, and frankly feels solid and hefty enough that it would form an excellent makeshift weapon should the need arise. In the base of the unit are 3 mounting holes that will take the standard M6 bolts that most sim racing equipment uses. And then there's the clamp, which is incredibly sturdy. It'll fit posts up to 45mm in diameter and can be opened up completely to fit onto existing installations. Interestingly enough for me, it will also attach securely to a 40mm aluminium profile section, which gives more mounting options for those with extrusion rigs. The form factor is again familiar, with everything housed in a neat black steel enclosure. This time around, they've added LED readouts so you can see the volume and filter settings at a glance, which combined with the new wireless remote makes changing settings during a session quicker, more precise, and importantly, it now remembers your settings between sessions. The amp pushes 90 watts of power at 2 ohms, which for me at least was plenty, and in my testing, even with a pretty heavy rig, I've not felt the need to turn it up to 11 at any point, but we'll get to the performance in a moment. Round the back, there's the ubiquitous power connector as well as banana connectors to hook up the transducer. Then there's the new USB connection, which allows the BKA Plus Amp to work as a standalone digital audio device for the PC. In this digital mode, connected via USB, you'll need to make use of the HaptiConnect software that's supplied with the kit to communicate with the amplifier and to tune the various effects that are driven by the sim telemetry. And this produces a very clean setup that eliminates lots of the cable mess that comes with analog hookup for these kind of systems. Speaking of which, the alternative is the old school analog approach. You can split your audio output from the PC with the included Y cable, and the amp will provide feedback derived from the audio signal. But most sim racers utilize third-party software like SimHub or SimVibe to extract telemetry information from the racing sim, which then be sent to the amp via a separate sound card. And, well, you can still do this if you want. Both the analog and digital approaches have a lot of merit. Analog gives you the freedom to drive the feedback however you like with whatever you like, but at the expense of more complex software setup and cabling. Whereas the USB connection is hassle-free and much cleaner, but it does mean that you're tied to the HaptiConnect software, which is a consideration that I'll cover later on in the video. Before we move on to testing the system, I should mention the cables, which are a massive improvement over previous offerings from Buttkicker. All of the cables are braided and of a reassuring gauge. In the case of the signal cables, that implies thicker conductors and/or better shielding, both of which are really useful to have on a sim rig. The transducer cable is thicker still, which is always nice to see with what is essentially a speaker cable, and it also includes a quick connect plug. This removes the need to clamp down bare wire terminals or employ wire nuts or anything like that. It's all plug and play now. Installing the transducer on my profile rig was pretty straightforward. I tried a few locations and right under the seat seemed to give the best transmission. As a rule of thumb, you want the transducer to be located as close to where you want to feel it as possible. Let's not forget, its sole purpose in life is to vibrate big bits of metal. So the distance, material, and the resonant properties of your setup will have an impact on how it feels and the location you need to place it. Once firmly bolted down, I fired up Assetto Corsa and right away things were just working as intended, if a little over the top with the default settings. So tuning the high cutoff filter was the first step. Now, if you're unfamiliar, here's an example of how that works on an audio signal, which is probably a little bit easier to explain. As we lower the cutoff point of the filter, the frequencies above that point are attenuated. In a sim scenario, this is helpful to remove unwanted harmonic frequencies and to tune out any resonances that may crop up. And in my experience, they do tend to be a little bit higher in the frequency spectrum. Buttkicker recommends 80 Hz as the starting point, but I found just going a little bit lower to 74 was the sweet spot that no longer set my button box humming. In terms of volume, the Gamer Plus feels like enough, at least for me. With the amp turned up to about 80%, I was comfortable keeping all of the effect sliders around or below the 50% mark, so even with my heavy rig, there's a decent amount of headroom. But I would expect those combining haptics with motion and all of the extra weight and heft that entails would probably be better served with the Pro model and the extra movable mass in the transducer. Another consideration is clipping. This is an audio amplifier, so we don't want to introduce distortion into the signal. Thankfully, there's a light to warn you, so if you're getting clipping, turn the sliders down. Now, onto the effects. These vary between the sims depending on the telemetry that's actually provided by the game. The beta version of HaptiConnect I was provided includes integrations for 4 sims, and this table gives you a rundown of what's on offer. So what do the effects actually feel like? Which ones give instructive feedback, and which ones fit into the immersion category? First up, and common across all of the sims, RPM. Now this is a constant vibration that sort of scales in frequency with your engine's RPM. And it does a decent job of replicating some of the vibrations you might get in a real car, and feels great. But for me, this doesn't really add a lot of useful information in the driving state, so I put that firmly in the immersion camp. And then there's the acceleration effect, which adds a pronounced, enhanced vibration when you're accelerating or braking as a sort of proxy for G-forces. I'll be honest, I didn't get on with it, and I found it quite immersion breaking, but you might feel differently. The collision, gear shift, and curb effects do exactly what you'd expect. Collisions shake the rig vigorously, while gear shift adds a quick jolt as you change gears. Now, I always remove this effect in my wheel force feedback where possible, as I don't really want it to interfere with the important, steering business. So introducing this nice effect with haptics is a bit of a winner, and actually I think it's an ideal use case scenario in my book. Where things get interesting is with the wheel lock and the slip effects, and they kind of do what you would expect and provide vibration when the wheel is either locked or over a certain slip angle. And frankly, these are great because force feedback wheels are pretty terrible at providing that kind of information, particularly in the case of tire locking. Being able to feel and modulate the brakes without having to listen for audio cues is frankly pretty rad. And it can also be used to inform you when the ABS is engaging as well, because I assume you're getting the same lock signal from the sim, which is very useful information when you're driving, so you can avoid leaning on the ABS too hard if you need to use it. And actually it's very immersive too, because you're getting vibration. Admittedly, my shaker's at the back of the rig, but if I put it at the front by the pedal, I imagine it would feel very similar to ABS engaging on a real car. The other effects generally fall into the immersion category, at least in my opinion. And while these effects are nice to have, they do need to be mixed in with care. Every time you increase the volume of one effect, you're effectively lowering the perceived volume of the rest, and it's often better to take things away that you don't like rather than add more of the things you do. As for the sims themselves, Assetto Corsa and iRacing provided the most, sim-like experience, and I found myself setting up the feedback in those particular sims to provide instruction over immersion. But it was Dirt Rally 2 that made for the most fun, the most immersion, and it was the hardest to put down at the end of a session. The feedback provided just felt great, if perhaps not quite as instructive as AC and iRacing from an actual driving perspective. So I found myself using more of the effects and mixing in plenty of what I would class as the immersion-only stuff as well. And for whatever reason, I felt it really all came together as a really pleasing mix of signals that just added another dimension of immersion to Dirt Rally 2. So, the software. HaptiConnect is Buttkicker's answer to the likes of SimVibe and SimHub. It's also a necessity if you want to connect your amp via USB and use Buttkicker's own telemetry-based feedback. In short, it works very well, supports multiple devices, and you can set up and configure multi-kicker rigs. And pleasingly, it even supports older models of Buttkicker as well. But there's a but. Racing sims are integrated into HaptiConnect via plugins. The Gamer Plus and Pro kits include the standard edition of HaptiConnect, which features 4 sim plugins. Unfortunately, the website doesn't actually list which those sims are, so I have to presume it's iRacing, Assetto Corsa, Dirt 2, and Project Cars 2, since that was what was provided in the beta. You can upgrade to the Ultimate Edition, which gives you unlimited access to current and future SIM integration plugins, and of course you're going to be able to buy them separately or in packs, with an expected price ranging between $3 and $10. To cut to the chase, I'm not a fan of that model. Of the 4 free SIM integrations, 2 are for older titles, one's for a probably slightly niche rally game, and the others, well, it's iRacing. So I would suggest that a big proportion of sim racing buyers that go for the Gamer Plus or Pro kits are going to have to shell out for additional plugins right away, on top of the hardware cost itself. Sure, $30 to upgrade to the Ultimate Edition or a few bucks for an individual plugin isn't massive, especially in relation to the hardware cost, but it just doesn't sit right. Think of it this way, if you primarily race in, say, F1, ACC, Race Room, R-Factor or Automobilista, you're not going to be able to use the USB connectivity that you paid for in your hardware unit unless you pay extra again for a relevant plugin, which is not ideal. For me, it would be preferable if you give them the choice of integrations that you actually want when you sign up and download the HaptiConnect software, or, not charge for them in the first place. Now, the counterpoint to my position is that developing software costs money, and by funding it from sim plugin purchases, it means it's not baked into the hardware cost. And this is a product that sells to lots of different sectors and not just to sim racers. I do have my doubts if, say, most home cinema fans need an integration for, say, GTR 2. So I can see the logic, even if I don't agree with the outcome. Additionally, I would like to see a bit more functionality as well. At the moment, there's no ability to save presets, for example, which for me is a must-have. No 2 cars are the same, even within the same sim. So if you're using your Buttkicker to get useful driving information, you want to be able to tune it between different types of car. And I think that's doubly true where you're using your Buttkicker to add immersion as well. Of course, you don't have to use HaptiConnect, and if you're happy using analog audio routing type setups, then third-party software like SimHub is still a great solution. The Buttkicker Gamer Plus has a lot going for it. The transducer is very well made, solid, and plenty responsive for my needs. And it's easier to mount than previous models to boot. The tweaks to the amplifier, remote, and cabling are all excellent quality of life upgrades over previous models, and simply put, on the hardware side of things, there's very little to dislike. Now, with the software, I think more could be done. And then there's that matter of payware sim integration plugins, of which, let's just say I'm not a fan. But when it comes to the crunch, HaptiConnect does exactly what it's supposed to do, providing great feeling telemetry-based feedback. At this stage, the Buttkicker offerings are a pretty mature product line with plenty of reputation to fall back on. And it would have been easy for them to phone in this range refresh, but for me at least, it feels like a well-considered renewal that's made incremental improvements across the board. So to tread firmly on the cliche line, this feels like good evolution, if not revolution.